Hi, thank you guys for joining me today. My name is Amelia Ott, and I from Family Resource Navigators. I'm the program manager for our Supported Decision Making Technical Assistance Program, which is a grant we received through the California State Council of Developmental Disabilities. In partnership with Support for Families, we created this curriculum, and we're going to be talking about regional center services, eligibility, and services. So we'll go ahead and get started today. So some of the learning goals that we have today are talking about the regional center, who is eligible for regional center services, and what are some of the services. We're going to talk about what an individual program plan is, and then some of the hints and tips for preparing for an IPP meeting. And then we're going to talk about the self-determination program option. So what is the regional center? So the regional center came from the Latterman Act, which is a law that states people with developmental disabilities have the right to receive services and support. It also makes the state responsible for providing these services. California accomplishes this through organizations called the regional centers. Regional centers are nonprofit organizations that work with the California Department of Developmental Services, which for short is DDS. They evaluate individuals for eligibility and assist in finding and coordinating services. All right, so who is eligible for regional center services? So people with a developmental disability that started before the age of 18, and that is expected to continue indefinitely, and that is a substantial disability. In California, a developmental disability is one of these 5 conditions. So cerebral palsy, epilepsy, autism, intellectual disability, and other condition which closely is related to an intellectual disability or requires a similar treatment. This is the 5th category, which encompasses a larger amount of people that may not have one of those diagnoses, but it closely relates to them or requires a similar level of treatment to those. Right. So, what is a substantial disability? This means that the person has one of these diagnoses and has major challenges in at least 3 of these areas. So, communication skills, this is receptive and expressive languages, learning, so their ability to learn, self care, so their ability to care for themselves, mobility, so are they able to move through the community? Are they able to move and take care of themselves? Their self-direction. So again, that plays into their self-care, their learning, their communication. Are they able to get through the day? Are they able to self-direct themselves? Independent living and economic self-sufficiency. Those things you may not know when a child is a lot younger, whether they're going to have an idea of if they're going to be able to live independently or whether they're going to have economic self-sufficiency. But as a minor gets older, you're going to have a better idea if those impact a person and if those could be one of the 3 areas. So somebody may, at a young age, have a substantial disability in all of these areas, but they need to have at least 3 of them and a substantial disability to qualify for regional center services. All right, so if you are found eligible and become a client of the regional center, you would be assigned a service coordinator. Some regional centers call them a case manager. So the consumer and their family, so sometimes you'll hear it as a client. The case manager and service coordinator is the main point of contact at the regional center. They facilitate the meetings that are person-centered to create the IPP, or the individual program plan, for the consumer client. They coordinate all the services that are provided by the regional center, and they would then answer any questions or concerns or have any discussions. And then they help find any services to meet the consumer's needs in the community, which are called the generic services. So whether that would be respite, or if that's going to be a daycare service, if that's a community living or an independent living service, they're going to help you find a vendor for that. So how does the regional center determine services? So regional centers are required to use a person-centered approach when determining services, which are documented in an individual program plan. And so an individual program plan is similar to an IEP, which is an individual education plan. It's not the same though. An individual program plan though is individualized. It talks about what the client consumer's plan is for what they want to do, what their goals are. Do they want to live independently? Do they want to engage more socially in community activities? And with that, what do they need service-wise to be able to do that? Do they need practice going to different community services? Do they need more socialization? For instance, in this picture, does music really engage them so that they feel more confident, so they can get out into the community? Do they need to go and do music so that they can perform and then get up on the stage to have more confidence? With a person-centered planning, it emphasizes a person's future and their goals. The process should be guided by the individual's interests and prioritizes focusing on what matters most to them. Part of the process is to record how the adult consumer makes their decisions. So it's important to document the use of supported decision making. And so again, right, as we're talking about supported decision making in all of these modules, having those supporters and focusing on the person with the disability and how they want to feel supported in the community is really important, right? And so if that supporter is there just to help them feel comfortable, then that is what that supporter is there for. If that person with the disability wants to discuss their goals with the supporter beforehand, and then the supporter is there to provide that information to the service coordinator, then that is what the supporter is there to be. It really depends and is individualized. All right, so the planning team decides what services are needed. The team includes the person who will get the services, their family, regional center staff, and any supporters the person wants to include. The IPP document lists the services and supports needed to reach goals and who will provide them. It's like a contract with the regional center. Once you agree on what's inside, they are expected to follow it. Again, I mentioned it's similar to an IEP, right? Once the school district and you, like in an IEP, the school district is expected to follow it. With an IPP, once regional center and the consumer agree to it, regional center is expected to follow it. All right, so regional center and generic services. So regional centers are the last option for paying for services. They are the payer of last resort. Regional center does not pay for everything. If another program can provide the service, regional center will not pay for it. The services are called generic services, right? And those include the ones that are offered by public agencies or private insurance and or managed care plans. So some of these examples, right, are school services, so IEP. So if your minor child, person with a disability, wants occupational therapy services, they're going to either be getting them through the school district or they're going to be getting them through private insurance, right? However, once they're over the age of 18, they're either going to be getting them through private insurance or Medi-Cal, but there may be other areas where regional center may become the payer of last resort and cover occupational therapy services. But they are the payer of last resort, and there are very specific situations, right? Medi-Cal, right, would be a place where they would be paying for visits to doctors. In-home support services, right? And so you would need to apply for in-home support services before they would provide in-home care providers. SSI is another generic service, and or medical equipment. So durable medical equipment would be covered, through Medi-Cal or through a private insurance plan before regional center would pay for it. If an adult regional center consumer, so a person with a disability, doesn't qualify for those generic services, the regional center can then pay for them. And so regional center in many cases will then support paying for either all or a portion of them. So some regional center services that are offered to adults. They include a variety of options. So independent living services, which is for a person with a disability who lives in the family home. And it's skills training. So there is a person who comes into the home and they can work with the person on, learning to cook, learning to clean. It can be learning to use a computer, but they can also take the person out into the community. It's based upon what the person with the disability chooses their goals to be. So if they want to learn to ride the public bus or ride public transportation, then that is what the goal is, and that's what the independent living services provider works on the goal. There's also supported living services, and this is for an adult who lives independently in their own home, so outside of the family home. And this is more of a, not a regional center case manager, but a case manager who works on managing and supporting an individual living in their own home in a case management way, in setting up goals and managing the household with the person with the disability. And then there's also coordinated family services. And so this supports both the individual as well as the family when the adult with a disability continues to remain living in the family home. And then there are some group housing options that range from a community care facility to family home agencies to intermediate care facilities and or special needs care homes. And so there's a variety of those group housing options. And so some other options that Regional Center provides are some employment services. So there's a variety of services that can help adults find jobs and various level of supports to meet their employment needs. And so some of those kind of wrap in to some of the day programs, and they go and maybe volunteer at programs and job opportunities. And then from there, many of those volunteer options turn into job opportunities as those volunteer and they get those trainings, and then they offer those employment. And then there's also focused employment services for individuals who already have an idea of where they want to be working. And again, individualized employment services where there might be one-on-one coaching with a employment coach and an individual with a disability. And those can all be supported through services with the regional center. And so some other regional center services are some community integration programs, communication training and support, specialized transportation, behavioral supports, nursing services, respite services, day programs, counseling, mobility training, adaptive equipment, durable medical equipment, and therapies. And so there is a lot of different services that Regional Center covers. Although just because Regional Center offers a service does not mean that an individual is eligible for a service. There are requirements for an individual to qualify for a service outside of just an individual wanting a service. So talking with your regional center, your regional center case manager is very important, and coming up with goals as to why you want and need a service is very, very important so that a service is justified. All right. So, how do you prepare for an individual program plan meeting using supported decision making? So, deciding what supporters will attend with you and the roles they will have in the IPP process. How your supporters help is entirely up to you. Reviewing with your supporters your current IPP to identify what is working well and what isn't. So, if it's your first IPP meeting, maybe you don't know how things are going to go. And you just want everybody there and everybody's listening and everybody's kind of free to kind of talk and jump in, ask questions, and really just get as much information as possible. That's okay. But if you have new supporters coming in, get a copy of your current IPP, share it with whoever you like, or point out where you want a supporter to support you so that they know exactly where you want them to be supporting you, because that's really going to be crucial for them to understand what is going to help you best be successful. All right. So plan with your team what you want as your goals. So if you don't already know for this IPP, do you have any changes? Where are you wanting to live and with whom? Has that changed since your last IPP? How do you want to spend your days? Are you wanting to study and go to school? Are you wanting to work? Do you want to change where you're working? Are you wanting to do a different, do you want to volunteer? Do you want to do art? Or is there some other extracurricular activity that you want to spend or kind of explore more? Do you want to do sports? Right? Is that something that you want to explore more? And then what's working well in your life right now? Are you getting to hang out with your friends? Are you able to navigate through the community independently? Or do you need more support? Right? Are you not comfortable in public transportation? Are you not getting out? Are you not feeling comfortable? Are you not able to get to your appointments because you just aren't comfortable getting there? What needs improvement, right? Are there any things that could be going better for you? Maybe you aren't getting out enough. Maybe adding somebody helping you with working on public transportation is really important, right? Or maybe you getting into a day program is going to be the best option for you for 3 or 4 hours a day to get some social interaction, right? Those are all things that you can talk about. Don't be shy. Really be honest, right? Your service coordinator is there to help you figure out how they can help you. And then if you really know what services you need and what support you need, don't be afraid to ask for them. It's within your right. Ask for them and talk to your service coordinator about what you need and what they need from you to be able to justify it. All right, so list all the services and supports you think you need to reach your goals. Make sure to invite all the people and agencies you want to the meeting. So remember, you can invite other people to the meeting outside yourself and your supporters. So if that means that you want somebody from your IEP team, or if you want your medical provider to attend the meeting, that is well within your rights. You can invite anybody that you want. The law says that your planning team must make decisions about your services and supports during the meeting. Someone from the regional center who can approve or deny your request, called a decision maker, must be there. Usually they won't come unless you ask for them. So many times decision makers are not always available to come to every single meeting. Many times when you have an IPP meeting, you don't need the service immediately that day to start very quickly. If you do, and you expect that it's going to be very difficult, requesting a decision maker to be there is going to be really important and is well within your right to request them to be present. However, if you don't believe that you need those services as quickly, requesting a decision maker to be present, maybe you don't need them there, right? Maybe it's not the best decision to have them there at every single meeting, especially if you can wait a week. Many times a service coordinator, it'll take them another couple days to get back to you. However, if you've had difficulty with your service coordinator not following up with you and not getting back to you, you can request a decision maker to be present and to hold your service coordinator responsible for getting back to you and giving you a response. Because many times there is a service coordinator who is not responsive, does not follow up with you by phone, does not follow up with you via email. Do not be afraid to hold regional center responsible and your service coordinator responsible. They are there to support you as the client consumer to provide the services that you want, you need, and the law allows you to receive. All right, so make sure that the IPP shows that one, what services and supports you will receive, including the type and amount, two, who will provide these services and when they will start. If services can't start immediately, the IPP must say what steps will be taken, who is responsible for each step, and the deadlines. The law requires all this to be in the IPP. If you and the regional center can't agree on something, you can have a second IPP meeting within 15 days. At the second meeting, you should be able to talk directly to the decision maker without waiting for a committee or supervisor. If the first answer is no, you don't have to have a second meeting, but you can ask for a written notice and learn how to appeal. All right, so what we talked about is something that is generally referred to as the traditional model. There is a second option that is called the self-determination program. And so the self-determination program lets people and their families have more control of the services and supports they receive. In the regular, which is the traditional program, a service coordinator from the regional center helps find services. In the self-determination program, you can pick your own services, supports, and providers using family, friends, or an independent facilitator. You create a budget, make a spending plan, and work with the financial management service. Now, when you are creating the budget and making a spending plan, all of these things are reviewed and then have to be approved by regional center. And all of these are then monitored by regional center. And so while you have more control, they are still monitored by regional center, and you still have to work within the regional center framework. You still have to make sure that generic services are in place first. Regional center is still the payer of last resort. So same basic framework. However, you just have more flexibility and more control over the vendors and kind of outside of a service coordinator picking the vendors. You are picking the vendors and able to work one-on-one with individuals rather than through the regional center contracts with programs. So here are some pros and cons of self-determination. So It offers independence and empowerment. A wider range of supports and services is available to consumers and their families. So like I discussed, you as the consumer and or supporters, family members, you guys are able to find individuals in the community to partner with one-on-one to provide services. In the traditional or regular model, you are only able to work with people who are contracted as vendors with Regional Center. And so that's a lot more difficult because sometimes there are not as many options available. So individuals can choose providers and activities that best suit their needs. And so again, there's a limited number of vendors through the regular traditional model. With self-determination, you can choose anybody for the providers and activities so long as it was approved in your budget and within the budget financial. And there's more freedom and flexibility, and there can be a quicker time, right? You don't have to wait for the vendor process. You don't have to wait for an availability sometimes in a slot in a program. You can choose somebody and start immediately with an individual provider out in the community. And then again, some participants, family members feel that there is a lot of administrative work to manage the program, especially the financial component. And so this is sometimes very difficult, setting up and going through the initial budgeting process and working with an independent facilitator. Many families don't work with an independent facilitator, but it can be a process, right? It can take months to set it up. And then on an annual basis, you then have to go through a re-budgeting and an additional approval each year. And so sometimes that can be challenging for some people. And then parents worry about what will happen to this kind of program when they are not here to manage it. And so again, if the supporters are handling the budgeting process of this, which can be very challenging, if the supporters are not there to support that budgeting process, how will that be managed? Will the person with the disability be able to manage that portion when the supporter is not there? Who would be the backup person to be able to support that in those situations? And that, can be put in place by having backup people and have a plan in place. So some different things to think about. All right. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you guys want to find out more about supported decision making and learn more about regional center services, you can find out more on our website at yourdecisionmatters.org. You can also look at at Family Resources Navigators website at familyresourcenavigators.org. And again, this work was made possible through a grant at the State Council of Developmental Disabilities. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Have a wonderful day.